Hey everyone, welcome. Okay, let's just dive right into this explainer because today we are exploring a radical paradigm shift about how we actually experience the world. We're looking at a concept that literally has the power to completely rewire how you handle stress, anxiety, and just those everyday frustrations that get us all down. We're taking a look at the core concepts from Joseph Nguyen's absolutely incredible book, Don't Believe Everything You Think. And the central argument here is profound, but it's also incredibly simple. It's the idea that our psychological suffering isn't actually caused by the outside world at all. It comes entirely from within. So we're going to break down exactly how this mechanism works, and more importantly, how you can actually free yourself from it. Now, what if suffering is entirely optional? I know, that is a massive, bold claim to make, right? Saying that suffering is a choice. But listen, while physical or situational pain is absolutely inevitable in life, we all go through it, our psychological suffering actually doesn't have to be. It really all comes down to how our minds process the events happening around us. There's this brilliant ancient Buddhist concept of the two arrows that illustrates this perfectly. In life, we can't always control the first arrow. However, the second arrow is our reaction to the first. The second arrow is optional. The first arrow is the physical event, right? The thing that happens to you, which you honestly often can't control. But the second arrow, the emotional suffering, that comes entirely from our own internal reaction to that first arrow. We are literally the ones shooting that second arrow at ourselves. Let's ground this in reality for a second. Take a moment to reflect on this thought experiment from the book. Imagine you're sitting on the couch, you're with your family, watching TV, but you are just fuming. You're totally stressed out because you're sitting there thinking about how much you hate your job. Now ask yourself, who would you be right in that exact moment without that thought? Without our negative thinking about a specific event, our experience completely alters. It shifts to one of peace, lightness, and actually enjoying the present moment with the people we love. To really get this, consider this classic Zen parable of the young monk. So this guy was constantly frustrated, convinced that the chirping birds and the rustling wind were just totally ruining his meditation. Seeking total peace, he takes a boat out into the dead center of a lake. Suddenly, with his eyes closed, he feels another boat bump into his. He instantly boils with rage, totally ready to scream at the careless person who just steered right into him. But when he actually opens his eyes, he realizes the boat that hit him was completely empty. It had just drifted over on the wind. Instantly, his anger completely vanishes. I mean, you can't exactly scream at a piece of wood, right? This proves to the monk that the empty boat had zero power to make him angry. It was entirely his own internal reaction, his expectation of some inconsiderate person that actually caused his suffering. Okay, moving on to section 1, thoughts versus thinking. If you take away only one thing from this explainer today, let it be this framework right here. First, we have thoughts, with an S. Thoughts are a noun. They are energetic mental raw materials from the universe. They just happen, automatically, popping into our heads from this infinite source that is way beyond our conscious control. Having a thought takes absolutely zero willpower. It's effortless, it's natural, and it's highly creative. Thinking, on the other hand, is a verb. Thinking is when we actively engage with those thoughts. It's when we grab onto a thought, we judge it, we criticize it, and we totally overanalyze it. This process is laborious, it's forced, and it's heavily driven by our ego just trying to keep us safe. Thinking is what actually drains our energy and creates all that emotional turmoil. You can really see the stark contrast here. Thoughts create with love, they feel super light, and they offer infinite possibilities. Thinking, though, destroys with fear, bringing this heavy, restrictive energy that's just filled with limitations. Essentially, thoughts create, while thinking destroys. Let's actually test this right now. Think of your absolute dream income. Got it? Okay, now multiply that number by 5. That initial number that just popped into your head, that was a pure, expansive thought. But all the self-doubt, the rationalizations, the immediate feelings of, oh, I can't do that, or wow, that's greedy, that you felt just seconds later, that was destructive thinking. The initial thought didn't cause you stress. Your thinking about the thought did. So it's not the content of our thinking that causes us stress, but that we are thinking, period. Imagine your mind has this little thought-o-meter on its dashboard, tracking your thoughts per minute. When you start actively thinking and that needle revs way up into the red zone of overthinking, you feel intense stress. The really fascinating part is that this happens regardless of what you are actually thinking about. It's not the content, it's the sheer act of thinking that brings on the anxiety. Which brings us to section 2, clearing the dirty water. So, how do we actually stop this mechanism of overthinking? Because fighting it,
Yeah, that usually just makes it worse. Before we fix it, we have to see how reality is built through these three principles. We have the universal mind, which is the underlying life force or electricity. We have universal consciousness, which is our awareness, kind of like the TV player, and universal thought, the raw material, like the DVD itself. If any one of these is missing, we simply wouldn't be able to experience reality at all. Our experience is generated from the inside out through these principles.
With that established, here is the author's incredibly elegant solution to overthinking. Imagine I give you a bowl of cloudy, dirty, murky water. How would you make the water clear? Your first instinct might be to aggressively filter it, or boil it, or get in there and try to scoop the dirt out. But doing those things just agitates the water even more, right? The real answer? You just let the bowl of dirty water sit for a period of time. The dirt begins to settle entirely on its own. Just like the dirt in that water, if we simply become aware of our thinking and just leave it alone without fighting it, without treating it like quicksand where struggling only pulls you deeper, our mind naturally returns to its default state of clarity and peace. You just have to let it settle. All right, section 3, inspiration versus desperation. Now this brings up a pretty obvious question, right? If we stop thinking, how on earth do we ever achieve our goals? Well, the author highlights that we actually have to shift the types of goals we set. See, we usually set goals of desperation. These feel heavy, they're urgent, and they act as a means to an end, like wanting to make $1 million just so you can finally quit your stressful job. Instead, we want goals of inspiration. These feel like a boundless calling. We pursue them from a place of abundance, simply because we want to create, not to escape some feeling of lack. To find those inspired goals, try asking yourself this. If I had infinite money, already traveled the world, had absolutely no fear, and didn't receive any recognition for what I do, what would I do, or what would I create? By taking money, fear, and ego-driven recognition completely out of the equation, you bypass that active thinking mind entirely. Whatever pops into your head right now, that taps right into your divine inspiration, where anything is possible. And that leads perfectly into section 4, unconditional creation. Think about it like unconditional love. You don't love your partner just because they took out the trash, right? You just love them. Well, unconditional creation means creating without reasons or conditions. It's making something purely for the joy of creating it. When you paint, or code, or build, or write, without tying it to some conditional outcome, you immediately connect with this amazing feeling of abundance and positive energy right here, in the present moment. As William Shakespeare famously wrote, there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Think of life kind of like a piano with 88 keys. Out of context, there are no inherently wrong keys. They're just different notes. Our events and circumstances are exactly the same way. It's only our active, judgmental thinking that creates the illusion of good or bad and ultimately creates our suffering. It is only when we think we know more than God that we run into problems. I want to leave you with this final, really profound thought from the author. When we overthink, we are essentially trying to outsmart the universe. So what miracles might you experience today if you finally let go of all that heavy thinking? Stop shooting that second arrow and just trusted your natural inner wisdom. Thanks so much for joining us on this explainer, and I really hope this helps clear the murky waters of your mind